All right, welcome everyone. It looks like we're live. If you are here, you can find the chat window there. Let us know you're watching so we can see who's here. We're here today with Lindsay Halsey again. So for those of you who joined us last week, we're back with Lindsay on another topic this week. So I'm really excited about this. All right, we've got Kim, Eileen, welcome everybody. So happy to have you. Let us know where you're tuning in from. I see Kristen from Montana. That's awesome. I don't know if I've ever seen someone say they're from Montana. You may have joined us previously, Kristen, but I don't know if I've seen the Montana. So that's really exciting. Very cool. I'm in the middle of catching up on Yellowstone, so I imagine it's just like that out there, right? Just lawless and crazy. We got Oklahoma, Jersey. Very cool. Really excited to see everyone. We are getting set up on Facebook and it looks like it's working. So if you're watching on Facebook, let us know as well so we can see you over there. We've got snowy Minneapolis, sunny South Carolina. All right, this is fantastic. We have people all over. This is fantastic. Wonderful. Well, we can go ahead and get started. I'm personally in a gray, cloudy, overcast Ohio. Lindsay, whereabouts are you?
I'm in a gray, overcast Colorado, but that's favorable for us because we want to ski.
Yeah, exactly. So that's good for you. Good for you. We've just got cold rain coming, so not quite so lovely. Awesome. Kristen says not much like the show, but they are real ranch. Not much like that show that we real ranchers do not watch. Yes, of course. I figured that would be the response. Awesome. Okay, well let's go ahead and get started here. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Emily from GoWP, and we are here for today's webinar on how to get your clients set up with Google Analytics 4 with Lindsay Halsey, who is the co-founder at Pathfinder SEO. Really quick, I just want to say a couple words about GoWP in case anyone watching isn't familiar with us. So at GoWP, we like to say that we create happiness for digital agencies and help them to become more profitable. So whether you're looking to grow your team with a developer, a copywriter, designer, or you're interested in outsourcing services, things like maintenance, content edits, blogging, landing page build outs, case studies. We have a whole array of outsourced services as well that you can take advantage of to scale your services and grow your agency. So that you don't have to be the one delivering all the work, so you can focus on growth, and you've got GoWP on your team. Apart from that, we've also built an active community of more than 1,600 agency owners where we hold regular group calls. We live stream these webinars. We do workshops. We have great conversations, and the whole goal there is also just to help you grow your agency, and that is the Niche Agency Owners Facebook group. I'll post a link to it there in the chat. And if you're not already a member there, we'd love to have you. So join us over there as well. So if you have any questions about partnering with GoWP or how we can help your agency, feel free to reach out in the group. You can reach out to me, Emily at GoWP.com, or any other means you find to communicate with us. We'll receive that and get back to you. So we're happy to have that conversation. A few notes regarding the webinar. We will be watching the chat. So if you have questions, throw them into the chat. There's also, if you're here in Crowdcast, there's the Ask a Question feature, and you can put your question in there. That kind of helps us keep them all in one place. But if you want to just throw them into the chat, that's fine as well, and we'll take note of them there. If you're on Facebook, feel free to comment, put your questions in the comments, and we'll get those over as well into the webinar. And that is about it. So let's get started. We are here with Lindsay today. Lindsay Halsey is co-founder of Pathfinder SEO. Co-founder, did I say finder or founder? I might have switched. So co-founder of Pathfinder SEO. She has over 10 years of experience working in SEO with small to large businesses. As an SEO professional, her primary interest is search engine optimization for WordPress websites. She enjoys teaching business owners and web professionals about holistic SEO practices with a focus on actionable tactics that create results. Lindsay focuses on teaching site owners, freelancers, and agencies how to get found on Google via her guided approach to SEO. And you can stay in touch with her on Twitter. She'll share all that at the end of this webinar. And she's joining us from, like she said, Aspen, Colorado today. So we're happy to have you. Welcome, Lindsay. Glad you're back.
Thanks so much, Emily, and for everyone for joining us. Excited to chat with you today about Google Analytics 4 and how to get your clients started with this new version. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. The plan for today, walk through a handful of slides to make sure you have the big picture, and then get into live demo mode. I want to poke around with you in Google Analytics so you can start to see where to click and why, and you walk away with some actionable new skills. And then we'll save time for questions at the end. I have a feeling, just to give you a big picture sense, you're going to walk away wanting to learn a couple more things about Google Analytics, maybe about Google Tag Manager. And so we'll be sure to point you in the direction of some add-on resources, and really target today's conversation to the concept of you're an agency owner and you need to get your clients moving in the right direction with this new version of GA4. So let me go ahead and see if I've got the techie skills to get us screen sharing. Awesome, here we go. So I'm going to start at the very beginning, and that is just to remind us all that Google Analytics tracks and reports website traffic so that we can make informed, data-driven marketing decisions. It's free, it's enterprise level, and it's on most of our clients' websites already, whether you set it up or your client came with it when they joined your agency. A couple of other details about Google Analytics that can help to frame today's conversation. One is that it's 15 years old. It is in its current version, which is called Universal Analytics. I've also heard people call this Google Analytics 3 because it's the third version over this 15-year history that's out there. And now there is a new-ish version called Google Analytics 4. It's been around for over a year now, but that being said, it's really kind of what I would consider in beta, even though it's out there and fully live. So it's new-ish, but new for most people because for most of us, we haven't invested a lot of time and energy into the new platform. Today, we're going to cover why Google Analytics is throwing at us a new version. If you're like me, things are a little busy right now, and it's a little bit hard to absorb the idea of learning something totally new in analytics. We're going to talk about what is new. I want to get you excited about the reasons why you might want to move to Google Analytics 4, and talk a lot about when you might want to make that transition. Then we'll get into the how, that's the live demo mode. And lastly, we'll talk about the business side, about how you might want to package and sell kind of Google Analytics 4 upgrades as a service to your customers. So there are two big reasons why Google is evolving into this new platform, Google Analytics 4. And the first is because end user privacy is top of mind. This is on a global level, and in the web, we're moving into a cookieless world. And so analytics platforms like Google Analytics have to solve for this concept of data sparsity. We may not be able to collect as much data about our website visitors in the future as we do now. And so Google Analytics is using machine learning in Google Analytics 4 to help us fill in the gaps. So privacy, number one reason. And the second reason is something we've also all experienced, which is that there's just so much data out there. It's pretty overwhelming as a web professional. It's even more overwhelming as a business owner or site owner. And so by refocusing on this customer lifecycle concept, which is a theme you'll see in Google Analytics, they are trying to make data easier to be predictive and insightful. So if you've ever gone into Google Analytics and just let yourself roam around for about an hour or so, what you'll see is like, wow, there's a lot of data in here. And what you'll find challenging likely is to figure out, is this predictive data? Is this insightful? What action should I take based on what I've been learning? And so in the new version of analytics, there's more emphasis into taking away the overwhelm and to use machine learning and other things to give us those predictive and insightful bits of data. So let's talk more about what's actually changing in the new version of analytics. And if we go back to that 15-year history that I was talking about, and we're talking about the fourth version, what you'll have discovered is that in the old versions of analytics, when we've made changes, they've been very incremental. In fact, if you are still using the same tracking code on your website from the beginning of Google Analytics to today, you'd still be collecting data. I haven't actually personally experimented with this in your Google Analytics properties. So you wouldn't be getting maybe as many features and as great of data, but it would still work. When it comes to Google Analytics 4, we might as well think of it as a total re-platform. They've totally re-envisioned the way analytics works. And so there are three big things that are changing that are important to understand from a thematic standpoint. The first is the model. We're going to move away from the idea of sessions in page views, or in even older lingo, we talked about hits on websites, and everything is going to be modeled as an event. So if you view a page, that's an event. If you click on a video player, that's an event. If you complete a form, that's an event. If you scroll down the page to a certain level of depth, you fire off an event. So that's the biggest concept to understand around the model. The tag is also evolving. We're moving from this universal analytics tag, analytics.js, to the global site tag, gtag.js. So we actually have to make some tracking code updates. I've gone through and updated about 50 client accounts at our agency to GA4 over the past year. And so far, I've had to update the tagging and the way I've implemented Google Analytics on the site for each and every site I've done this for. And then the big thing you're going to notice is the user interface has, of course, changed. User interface has changed. And when I think about the universal analytics version, I think about the ABCs, or the AABCs. We have acquisition, audience, behavior, and conversions as the general model of how we move through exploring our data. In the new version of analytics, you're going to think about acquisition, engagement, monetization, and retention. And so that really ties back to that idea of the customer life cycle. Here's just a quick screenshot. We'll be in Google Analytics here in a bit, but you can really quickly tell when you're in which version. The version on the left, Universal Analytics, has quite a bit of a different UI and experience there. So let's talk about some of the new features in Google Analytics 4 while I'm still on the upswing of trying to get you excited about the transition. The biggest new feature is that everything is an event. And so as data analyzers, there are definitely a lot of times where there are limitations in Universal Analytics, where I find a customer asks me a question that seems very reasonable, like how often did this get downloaded, or how often did this happen, or what caused something. And I find that there is actually missing data and analytics in Universal Analytics out of the box about how people interact with a website. And that is because events don't fire by default in Universal Analytics, whereas in the new version of Google Analytics, there is more emphasis on kind of automated event tracking for you. So that's an added value. We have new methods around identifying who somebody is. So never in Google Analytics history has Google Analytics include personal information. So if someone fills out a form on your website, Analytics isn't going to tell you Joe filled out this form and Joe came from organic search. There's no personally identifiable information in Analytics. But what's changed is how we rely on authentication to track users across devices. And so one thing that we've always felt like is a gap in our data and in the accuracy of our data is that people come to our website from a mobile device, from a tablet, from a desktop, maybe a home computer versus a work computer. They're all one user and they're firing off new sessions. And we're wondering how often that person gets tracked properly as one user across those different sessions, and how often we get information that says that these are all different users. And the limitation there is within the current Google Analytics, we really track users based on somebody being logged into a website. And a lot of websites are sites that we don't log into. And so there are gaps in sort of the identity of knowing a new versus returning visitor. With Google Analytics 4, there are new methods to improve that. So some better data accuracy there. We're going to see more robust real-time reporting for anybody that does anything with email marketing or promoting a lot of content on social media. It's really imperative to see your data in real time and be able to react to it. And so that's exciting. We're also going to be able to do more advanced segmentation of our data based on events. And so if you run Google Ads, for example, you might want to run remarketing ads or retargeting ads to your e-commerce audience based on their performance. So let's say I want to remarket to somebody when they're still in the buying cycle. They haven't hit the checkout button, but they've been coming to the site, maybe shopping and looking around. I want to retarget those people. As soon as they hit the buy now button, I want to take a quick pause. And depending on the product I'm selling, that pause could be a matter of weeks or months. I want to control the time, and then I want to re-engage with that existing customer to get back in front of them. So let's say you sell skincare products. That's a recurring purchase. You want to be in front of your audience a lot, then they make the purchase, and then maybe you want to wait 2 months, and then you want to get back in front of that audience because they might be out of product. And so you're trying to remarket to them again and engage. And so that's one of the cool things about Google Analytics 4 is much better segmentation methods to do things like running Google Ads. And then Google would argue it's easier to set up goals and track key performance indicators in Google Analytics 4. I'll let you be the decider on whether or not that's easier or not. But that is one of the key features here. And that is because in Google Analytics as it exists now, there is a gap with the out-of-the-box install between what we track and then what we care about. So we actually have to manually tell Google, hey, I care about people filling out a form or staying on my site for more than 5 minutes. These are my key performance indicators. I have to tell that to Google in the form of goals to customize Google Analytics for my website. There are, of course, a handful of limitations in Google Analytics 4. The first thing I would note is that reports aren't really beginner-friendly. In fact, the platform feels even less beginner-friendly than it already is. So there's a pretty steep learning curve to be thinking about. The next thing you're going to see in Google Analytics 4, I'm not sure is a limitation, but it's a shift in mindset. And that is that one of your potentially big engagement metrics, bounce rate, is gone. And the idea there is that there are no longer bounces because everything someone does on a website is a concept around engagement. So bounces are when you're like a window shopper. You go to one page and then you leave the website. If in this dynamic of moving away from sessions or hits, we're moving into this dynamic of engagement and events, then everybody has a differing level of engagement. So instead of the bounce, we have engaged sessions, engagement rate, and engagement time. And I actually, this is a limitation in mindset, but I don't actually find it to be a limitation. And that is because bounce rate, if you've ever explained it to one of your customers, is kind of nuanced. Sometimes we create a great landing page and it has everything somebody needs. And so we get a high bounce rate on that page, but people don't go off to other sources because they understood everything they needed about the topic at hand all on one page. And so that's where engagement makes a lot more sense. How I engage with a page is more interesting than if I leave it without visiting any more pages on the site. And then the other thing you're going to find, and I didn't create a laundry list here because it's always evolving, is that not everything has been migrated from Google Analytics 3 to Google Analytics 4. As an SEO, one of my favorite reports is about landing pages because I care about that acquisition piece of the puzzle. And so I care about looking at what pages on my website are acting as organic landing pages, meaning Google is sending traffic directly into them. This could be like a blog post that I write. It's a landing page that could drive direct traffic in when someone searches for that topic. And in Google Analytics 4 right now, we're not segmenting out events based on just when they fire on the site, and when they fire is that first time piece of engagement. So that's just one of the limitations that I've noted of late. There are, of course, more. One of the things to understand in Google Analytics' roadmap is that Google Analytics 3 or Universal Analytics, it isn't going anywhere. It's not being sunsetted. You can continue to use it in the months and years to come. But Google Analytics isn't doing any active development on it. So it's not going to evolve over time. Whereas Google Analytics 4 is where they're investing all of their active development and evolution. And so the things that are limitations today in GA4 will one by one become smaller limitations down the road, or get totally eliminated, and as Google migrates everything over. So let's talk for a minute about the when and the transition to Google Analytics 4. The biggest dynamic to understand here is that the data in Universal Analytics doesn't migrate to Google Analytics 4 for you. So that's what it used to be like when you moved from, say, GA 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, is that you upgraded your existing property and you had all of your old data in that new property. In this case, there's no backwards compatibility, and that is because of how reimagined the new platform is. We can't transfer hits and page views and sessions into events automatically. And so you start using Google Analytics, you start collecting Google Analytics data the day that you set it up in Analytics and get that tracking code properly installed on your website. And so in this case, the when becomes a question of when do I want to start populating data in that property? And what Google is recommending, and the best practice is today and probably for the year to come, I'm anticipating, is the concept of a dual setup. So we're going to continue to track information and data in a Universal Analytics property, and we're also going to run in parallel with a Google Analytics 4 property. And so it's this dual setup dynamic that I'm going to coach you on today. When I think about the pluses and minuses to the dual setup, it's important to kind of understand like when and how are you going to use things. So Universal Analytics, you're going to use this when you already have Google Analytics set up, because this is where all of your historic data is going to be. And then you'll also find that a lot of third-party software, including Pathfinder SEO, they still hook into Universal Analytics because it is the most universally used platform, and it has all that historic data in it. And we want to do a lot of data comparisons over time. So you're going to want a Universal Analytics property to be running, and those are the places you'll probably use it. And then your Google Analytics 4 property is going to help you to get familiar with the new interface. So just do a little bit of learning, like when I want to answer this question, where do I go? And then also, we just want to start that data collection today so that when we do decide to transition to GA4, we have historic data. And I will say, at our agency, we actually got started with this migration to Google Analytics 4 earlier in 2021. We got a lot of our clients moved over to it, and we were thinking, hey, there's a good chance we'll move our clients, like their reporting and our analysis, over to Google Analytics 4 sometime in early 2022. I've already kind of pushed that date back. I think this next year we're still going to be relying mostly on Universal Analytics data because we love that history, and because GA4 still has some major gaps in what we're trying to report on. But I am really glad that I have that data bucket set up. And it's a huge value add to our clients to start collecting that data today, so that they don't just come to you a year from now and say, I want to use GA4. And you say, well, we can get you set up, but we're probably a ways out because we won't have comparison data for you to utilize. So let's talk more about the how. The how to transition, of course, depends on different scenarios and roadmaps. We essentially have two different things that can be at play right now. The first is that you might be setting up a brand new Google Analytics account. So this is for a client's website that's not been running Google Analytics in the past, and you're just getting them set up for the first time. And then the other roadmap or scenario you might be in is that you have all your clients running Google Analytics. They're all using Universal Analytics. And so you have an existing account and you need to add that second property into the mix. Whenever we're thinking about this setup, we're thinking about two things. One, what's happening in Google Analytics itself and how it's configured. And then the other is, how are we getting that tracking code onto our website? And so in the WordPress space, when we think about dual setup, there are a lot of different options. Three of the big options that are out there for you for this actual code implementation. The first is Google Tag Manager. Google Tag Manager is different than Google Analytics, and you can think about it as a container. So I basically can put a container on my website by putting the Google Tag Manager tracking code on my WordPress site. And then I can fill that container with all of the tags that I need to power my Google Analytics, a Facebook pixel. I think we have codes on our site in Tag Manager for things like active campaign and anything where I need to put a little tracking snippet on my site. I can manage all those snippets in Tag Manager and just have one piece of code over on my website. And so what I like about Tag Manager is it's really flexible. It allows me as an SEO and not necessarily a developer to come in and customize the tagging and things in Google Analytics without having to log into the website and get into a theme file or something like that. And so it supports really additional customization of GA and beyond. The downside to Tag Manager is it's one more thing to learn. So you have to get comfortable using that interface. And then the other thing is it's a container and it gets fun to throw things in a container. Just think about when you're packing for a trip, if you have a big suitcase, you throw a lot of stuff in it. With Google Tag Manager, it can get a little enticing to over tag or to do too much in the Tag Manager account, and then that can slow down your site if you go crazy. So I've logged into some people's Tag Manager accounts and they might have 100 tags running and maybe only 20 are really active, but everything else is still in there. So it does require ongoing management. The next piece of the puzzle here, or other options for you, Monsters Insights is a plugin, and as of this September, it supports dual tracking, Universal Analytics and GA4. I would recommend with Monsters Insights making Universal Analytics like your primary install method with Monsters Insights. And then there's a little place in Monsters Insights where you can drop in your GA4, I think it's a Stream ID or something like that. Another plugin you can use is Google Sitekit. It's going to support the dual setup via settings, connected services, and analytics. So these are just some of the ways you can get in. You can also smack the code right on the site in a theme file and get your tracking code into your WordPress website. So let's move into live demo mode. And I am going to go and show you kind of two different scenarios. So the first thing is all I've done here is log into Google Analytics, and we're treating this as being an agency account. And so when I manage analytics for clients, I like to have one login that I use that has access to a myriad of accounts, and every one of my clients is set up as an account. And I do this for a couple of reasons. The first is that I want my clients to be the owners of their own data. I consider my agency an invited guest. And I consider my clients' accounts to be fully portable between agencies. And not everybody does it this way. And it can really add to a tangle at the end of a client relationship that doesn't make your customers feel like you kind of had their best interests at hand. So you can see here, I have kind of a sample account here where I have a couple different clients in here and then my own web properties. And those are all structured as accounts. If I come over here, I have properties. And so under each account, I can have multiple properties. And this is where one client can have a Universal Analytics property and a Google Analytics 4 property running in parallel all under one account. So let's use our first example of starting this process of building a Google Analytics account for a brand new customer. And so I'm going to log in as I have into here, and I am going to go into any one of my existing accounts, and I'm going to go into the admin side. There might be other places in analytics to create new accounts, but I don't actually want to create like a new Gmail account. I just want to add an account within my existing account. And so I'm going to do that by coming into an existing account and then going over here to plus create account. So it's a little counterintuitive, and I'm going to call this my latest account. And so this would be the business name. And you can go through and decide how much sharing you want to do. I tend to leave it as default. And the first place that you want to be careful with how you're clicking around in here is under property setup. So I'm going to put my property name to be my business name again, and I'm going to pick my time zone in here and my currency. But then I need to click on show advanced options. So there's a little nuance here that is I guess, funky at best with Google, which is that Google is telling us that we should do a dual setup. But if I go through the default onboarding of a new account in here, it's only going to set me up with GA4. And so I actually have to go in to show advanced options and click this little toggle here for create a universal analytics property to actually get this to work. So now I'm going to come in here. I'm going to drop in my website URL. Let's just say I'm going to add this for my agency. And here I want to leave create both a Google Analytics 4 and a Universal Analytics property highlighted. And then I'll click next. I'm going to answer a couple questions about my business and how I'm going to use analytics. You can check all that apply. And you know, at the end of the day, what Google's trying to do is say, if what you care is, say, app installs, because you're tracking an app, not a website, you know, you would want to check that box. And then their intuitive, data-driven kind of insightful metrics will target based on what you said is important to you. For me, I usually go with measure customer engagement. And then I might talk about optimizing advertising costs if I'm running Google Ads. Almost everybody I know wants to increase conversions and things like that. And so that's a big one. Not too many of our client sites are measuring data across multiple devices or platforms, maybe devices, but most of our clients aren't measuring between multiple websites or an app and a website, but that is something that's easy. Site is separate than your marketing site or something like that. So I'll go ahead, say create, accept some terms. And now I get thrown into the Google Analytics 4 side of things in the web stream details. And so whenever I see web stream details up here or measurement ID, this is the unique identifier for my Google Analytics 4 account. And then down here, I have a lot of complicated instructions, essentially, about how to get the tag on my website. And so it's telling me, okay, I can use Tag Manager, or I can just go ahead and drop this tracking code onto my website using the global site tag. So this is going to be one of the important numbers that I need for this account. But you want to be comfortable moving around in Google Analytics to move your way in and out of these places. And so if I exit out of here and then I back my way over here, what I'm going to see here is my latest account is up here, and I have two properties in here. The Universal Analytics has UA dash a bunch of numbers, and then GA4 is labeled accordingly. I know when I'm working in my GA4 property when I see just two columns. And that's because in GA4, you have the account level and then the property level. If I change my property to the Universal Analytics, I get this third column for a view level. And you can think about views as being buckets of data that you add a filter to, and that the filter only lets through certain information. So I might want to create a view on my of my data that excludes my own internal traffic, my own visits to the website. And so in GA3 and Universal Analytics, I would do that over here by creating a view and adding filters into it. But the reason that doesn't exist over in GA4 is because in GA4, we can actually add filters and do all that work on the fly and apply it retroactively. So there's like no need for views anymore, which also I would put in the +1 or value add area. So when I'm in here, there's a couple things that I'm likely going to want to do. In Google Analytics 4, I'm going to want to be comfortable getting into my data stream and getting that measurement ID here. I also will see I have some out-of-the-box enhanced measurement. So this is where it's trying to create events for me. And I can control what's turned on and turned off here. It's automatically all turned on, which is a good thing. But that's somewhere you could come in if for some reason you didn't want to capture some information, you could turn that off in here. So that's big in the web stream details of what you're going to want to do. The other thing that you're going to want to be able to do is control access to this account. So I'm the agency owner and I just set up GA for my clients. I want to make sure that they have access. And so I can come in here and I can add users and make sure that my clients have full permissions or whatever level of permissions that I want to add and incorporate. So that's an important thing to note. Oh, sorry, I'm not reading my prompts. Oh, don't save. All right. So that's going to be important. Over in my Universal Analytics, to get to that same bit of tracking code, I'm going to want to come over here into tracking info, and I can come down here and get my tracking code. So I basically have two pieces of code that I need to get into my website. And there are a lot of different ways that I could do this. I could use one of those plugins I noted, or I could use Google Tag Manager. And if I'm going to use Tag Manager, I can come over and create a container and drop that into that container. I'm going to move on and show you what this same process looks like when you're upgrading an account to get to this baseline, essentially. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the implementation methods of the tracking code. So let's go in and find a sample account that starts at a different beginning. The beginning here is going to be already tracking data, but not tracking with with Google Analytics 4. And I have to kind of poke around in here, but it looks like my client 2 is one of those examples. I can see here. Nancy's saying the display of the Google stuff is a little bit blurred. I'm wondering if I'm clicking around a little too quickly. Nancy, keep us posted here if you can see things well, and I'll try to maybe click and move the mouse around a little bit slower.
Lindsay, it might also help if you could zoom in
Definitely.
a little bit, possibly. Cool.
Okay, ping me if anything else comes up, because I know we're moving through all this fast. So in here, I have an example of an account with a property, and I can tell this property or this client account does not have Google Analytics 4 yet, because all they have is their UA under property. And so I'm going to go ahead and go into one of these in the admin side of analytics. So I get into the admin in all of the versions of analytics via the little cogwheel in the lower left. And when I come into here, I can just see I have under here only one property, and there are a couple different views in here that I had created, but those don't really matter to me too much right now. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and create a new property. And there's two ways that I can do this. I can go through what's called the GA4 Setup Assistant, or I can just click Create a New Property. Let's go through the Setup Assistant for just sake of example. And so basically it's asking me the first question, which is that you currently have Universal Analytics, and do I want to get started by creating a GA4 property? And the answer to that is yes. So it's going to say, okay, we're going to walk you through a wizard to try to do this for you. And it's going to quickly check for you. The wizard checks to see, can they just make Google Analytics 4, the code automatically work for you based on your existing tags. And so it's going to tell you, like, do you still have to do something on your website or not? As I noted, I've done this about 50 times, and this has never been checked for me. So you should pretty much always assume you're going to have to do something with your tagging. I'm going to go ahead and hit Create Property. And that is really the last piece of what you have to do in analytics to get this property to just exist. I can go and say, see my Analytics 4 property. It's going to open a new window and have all sorts of things in here about what I need to do. So one of the things it's going to talk to me about is my tag installation. And when I click on that, I'm going to get that data stream again. And it's in the data stream that I get my measurement ID. So there's a lot of just kind of getting comfortable with the user interface to be able to navigate around and find some of the things you're looking for. If I back out of this and then back out of this again, and I come here, I can see now that this client's account is basically set up with the same structure, one account with two properties under it, one for Universal Analytics and one for GA4. And now I'm ready in this account to upgrade or to do my tagging on the site. So I want to spend a minute talking about getting the tags into your website, because it's the second piece of the how in the equation. In getting tags on a website, one of the first things to do with that is to understand, how is Google Analytics installed on a website to begin with. And you sometimes want to do that as a spy, because you may not have been the one who set up Google Analytics in the first place. Or you might be even just in the sales side of things, and you're coming in and you want to see what's running on the site. And so there's a handy little extension called the Google Tag Assistant Legacy. And I can tell that Crowdcast isn't showing my drop down of my extension, or maybe it is. It's a little hard for me to tell from here. But if you check out that Chrome extension, what you'll get is when you click on it, it'll tell you what tags are running on a site. So you can quickly spy to see what's in there. And when you see G dash, you know you're talking about the global site tag and Google Analytics 4. When you see UA dash, you know you're talking about Google Analytics and Universal Analytics 3. And when you see a Google Tag Manager code, you know that there's one of those containers on the website. And that container is on each page. And so these tags likely live in that container. So that's just a good little spying tool when you're first getting started. You can then log into a website, as you all well know, and you can get your, let's see here, if I can get logged in on the fly. You can see maybe how that Google Analytics code is actually installed in the site. And so a lot of times I'll start by going in here. I know this is our own agency website, and I actually don't know how it's installed. And because I've used this as a sandbox, there might be a couple of options. I see a few options in here. I see insert headers and footers. So this would be a way for me to put the tracking codes on into this site using that plugin. I see Site Kit by Google. That would be another option. And that's really all I see in here. And so if I want to go and see what's going on in insert headers and footers, I can go under settings and I can see, okay, in here, I've got my Google Tag Manager code running in here. And that's how I have installed Google Analytics. And then I can pop over into Google Tag Manager and see that I do have access to this container. And I can see my tags and everything that's in here. So I can see my Google Analytics 4 code and my Universal Analytics code in here. The other thing is I could just place the codes directly into this header and footer. And so I could come over into Analytics. Sorry, I'm clicking around a little fast. Come into my data streams, go into that data stream and come in here, and I could go and I could grab this script right here and simply paste it into insert headers and footers and replace what I had and pull all of this out. So I have a lot of options as to how I want to get Tag Manager or Google Analytics into my site. Depending on what system you're using today, you can just do a quick Google search like Monsters Insights Google Analytics 4 and get the quick how-to information. And so for the implementation for existing accounts, what I recommend doing is making sure you have a good understanding of how it's installed now, and then deciding if you like that method. Are you happy in Monsters Insights? Are you happy in Site Kit? Do you like using insert headers and footers? Do you prefer to move everything into Google Tag Manager? And sort of making your game plan for this migration to GA4 while also thinking about how you have your Universal Analytics code already installed. And so this is where it gets very choose your own adventure, right? About how you want to get it into the site. And the big camps to understand the value of the different methods. The value of Tag Manager is ultimate control. So if you're willing to put in the learning of how to use Google Tag Manager, which I would put at the 2 to 3 hour range to get going with, then you're going to have full control over tons of customizations you can do down the road in analytics. If you're like, nope, not going there. I work with pretty small clients. I just don't need that level of control. But I want some custom events and I want some out of the box cool functionality. Then Monsters Insights is really great. And the reason Monsters Insights is really great is because there's going to be some out of the box event tracking that they extend your GA functionality to have for you without you having to do anything. So that's another option. And then Site Kit by Google, that's another one. It's going to have a couple of different tools that you can use in this plugin. And then something like insert headers and footers or just placing the code directly into the theme files is going to be sort of one other camp or option. And what I'd recommend is making a conscientious choice and then getting really good at whatever version you use so that your clients have like a consistent install of their Google Analytics on their sites, and it makes it easy to evolve over time. The last thing I wanted to show you back in the Google Analytics environment is one of the things that we are packaging into our upgrades to GA4 for customers are a second look at goal tracking. And so one of the most valuable things that you can customize in analytics for customers is adding in your goals. And the reason is because goals are how we define key performance indicators. And so a goal is how we tell Google Analytics that what we care about on this website, for instance, is people getting to the contact page, or people completing this, or people clicking on an email address. And we do that by setting up goals in Google Analytics. And so one of the things that we're doing is getting GA4 set up, but then also circling back and saying, hey, while we're in here, it'd be a value add to you if we made sure that your Google Analytics goals aligned with today's real world goals or real world KPIs. And so we're building that in. I just did a webinar, it was about an hour long, about setting up Google Analytics goals. And so we can provide that resource to you guys if you want to rewatch that to learn the how around goal tracking, both for Universal Analytics and for GA and for GA4, because they both work, of course, a little different. So goals are a big piece of the puzzle and something that we've packaged into this. I'm going to skip back into the slides for a minute. And what I want to do is just wrap up with the business side and then leave you with plenty of time for questions. And so this next piece of the puzzle is you're already learning a couple things. One, there's a lot of value to your clients to getting Google Analytics 4 set up today, so they're ready to transition to it next year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, whenever that might be. Hopefully you've come away with the idea that it's going to take a little bit of time and some learning to do this work. And so it's not something you should just do for free. We should definitely market and package this as a professional service. And while we're in there, there's a little more than just GA4 that we can be thinking about to really add a lot of value for our customers around the goal tracking. And so there are a couple different ways you might want to think about the packaging and the selling of this. The first is to think about, what are you going to do with analytics for new accounts, people that aren't running Google Analytics yet? And there are a couple different ways you might want to sell this. The first is just a one-time project. So let's say you bring in a new customer, maybe you inherit their website, or maybe you're going to redesign it. You notice that they're not running Google Analytics, and you say, one of the first things I need to do in working with you is get you set up with Google Analytics. And when I do, we're going to take this dual setup approach. We'll get Universal Analytics and GA4 running at the same time. And here is the package to buy. And you know, you're looking at something around, for a basic Google Analytics install, is a couple hours of time. That can go way up when you start to think about e-commerce tracking and more advanced setups. But the first thing I like to do for that small to medium-sized business is make sure that they've got the basics. And we're talking, you know, I might sell a package that's around 3 to 4 hours of my team's time. I think at our agency, we package a lot of these at the $750 rate. And we go in and we do the work, you know, somewhere within that kind of price range. The next time or place you could do this would be to just integrate this into a new site build. So you come in and you say, okay, we're building a new site, and one of the line items in the website project is, before your new site goes live, we're going to install Google Analytics. If they have an old site and they're not running analytics, and let's say this new site is going to take 2 months to build, you might actually pitch them on the idea of this being kind of a two-pronged project. One, let's get Google Analytics running on your existing website, so we get even 2 months worth of historic data for a before picture. And then when we transition to the new site, we'll use that same account and we'll transition that account onto your new site so that we have a continuous data stream, and we can do a little before and after comparison. So that'd be one way to think about the packaging and pricing. And then the next piece for new accounts could be integrated into your SEO services. So this is where we come into the conversation with a lot of clients. Is we get a prospect, they want to hire us for SEO services because we don't design and build websites. And we say, well, we really care about driving growth, but we have to measure growth to know if we're driving it. And so we need to integrate into our SEO services, into the setup phase of our work, some time for setting up Google Analytics. And so that's a couple ways you might approach it. The next piece of the puzzle would be existing accounts. So these are current customers. They've already had, or they might just have an existing account. If they're not current customers, you can come in and use those same tools that we used for new accounts, right? You're just pitching it a little differently and saying, hey, I noticed you're only running Universal Analytics. We need to run GA4 too. And so as part of whatever this onboarding project is, we're going to do some work there. But if I have existing accounts where I have an existing client relationship going, they're not building a new site or something like that, I might want to do one of two things. Either I'm going to just go and sell them a standalone project, because Google Analytics doesn't actually fit solely under SEO or solely under email marketing or solely under website maintenance. It's sort of a separate thing that touches on every aspect of a client's marketing. And so this is a really good opportunity to come in and just simply sell a one-time project to go in and do this work and a couple hours of time. Or you could come in and say, okay, in January, I'm going to dedicate a portion or all of our monthly SEO retainer to Google Analytics. So if your clients just need steady investment in their marketing, you can't, pitch them on a couple hour add-on. You can tell them, hey, this isn't just SEO, or hey, this isn't just social media management or something like that. But this is something that I think you need, and we need to prioritize. And I'm going to slate this work into this month. And instead of doing X, I'm going to do Y. And so that's one way to just make sure that you're not just doing something totally for free. In this slide, I put just like a little email about communicating the change. There are a lot of words here that your client's going to be pretty unfamiliar with. They might barely know what Google Analytics is. And so you have to back up the story to a place where each customer knows what you're talking about. So this email is a client that I kind of consider like middle education level. They know what Google Analytics is, and they might already even have access to Google Analytics. And so they might be getting some like product update emails from Google about this. And so this is me trying to kind of come in and pitch whatever, explain the what and the why, and then pitch whatever my solution is going to be for them. So a couple different options for packaging and pricing. My recommended number one next step here to everything Google Analytics 4 is to go use your own agency as your sandbox. Go in and get your agency's website set up with Google Analytics 4. Start getting comfortable with all the clicking around in analytics, and start doing the training you might need to level up a little in setting up goals or Google Tag Manager if you go in that route. And so get your feet wet. Then start to see, okay, what is the scope of work? What am I going to include? And how long is it going to take our team? So you at least know what your break-even rate needs to be on an hourly rate, and then add in the added value that you might be providing to your customers by the fact that you know their business. You can quickly identify what goals should get added and things like that. And you can move your pricing up to a place where you feel like it's value-based pricing. And the biggest way to do that is just to make sure you've done it at least once for your own agency. We've got an exclusive deal rolling for the GoWP for you folks here. If you're new to Pathfinder, we have 50% off your first 3 months and a bonus coaching session in your first month with this coupon code. The offer is good through December 31st of this year. While we focus on SEO at Pathfinder, we also do a lot of coaching with agencies on the Google Analytics side. So a lot of hands-on training. You can schedule coaching sessions and learn these skills in an environment that's just one-on-one, you and your coach, or you can get access to a lot of our trainings and resources and follow the SEO process at Pathfinder. That does include a step about Google Analytics because it's so important. I'm going to also leave you with my contact information. Twitter and email are the best places to reach out. Feel free to follow up via email with questions, and I'm happy to help do a little due diligence and digging for you as you get started here, and make sure your transition to GA4 is a success. So I'm going to pause that here. I might leave my screen sharing up because I have a feeling some questions may come in and integrate into wanting a little bit of a live demo, and just see if there's some questions that we can answer here live for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lindsay. That was Awesome, fantastic presentation. If you joined us last week for the happiness hour, I mentioned that we have been delving into GA4 just on the GoWP site. And it's not easy. It's not too complicated either, right? So it's like Lindsay said, get in there, start clicking around. I did run into a wall at one point where all of a sudden we were having seemingly no traffic coming to the site, and I thought I had broken everything, but that wasn't the case. So, have no fear. Everything's fixable. But that was a really great presentation. I'm excited to now dig back into it. One of the questions that came through, and I also, this is a really great question from Kim. In your opinion, which one is better to use, the global site tag or Google Tag Manager?
So I really like Google Tag Manager because I love all the customization that comes with being in Tag Manager in terms of setting up custom events and goal tracking. And so I am a big fan of Tag Manager, and that would be the recommended route. I caveat that with, that's one more thing you need to come in and learn. So if you're looking for a quicker solution, you might just put the global site tag into your site using Monsters Insights, Site Kit, or an insert header footer type style approach. And if you're like, nope, I think I'm going to get more, I'm going to really reinvest in this, I'm going to go and sell this to 10 or 20 clients, then I would encourage you to familiarize yourself with Google Tag Manager. And I will make sure to share out a Google Tag Manager WordPress kind of webinar that we did. It's an hour free training that you're welcome to watch. And that might at least also help answer which direction you should go. You watch that and you're like, nope, not doing this. Or, okay, yeah, I get it. I like the direction. I'll go get my hands wet over here.
Awesome. Yeah. And maybe we can get those links from you and we can share those in the follow-up email we'll send out to everyone here. Cool. Very cool. I look forward to that. Great. Okay. This question, how are goals and events different? Example, a form you want visitors to complete is a KPI that you want to be measuring. Is that both an event and a goal that you need to identify in Google Analytics?
That is a really great question. So in Google Analytics 3 Universal Analytics, an event is an interaction with content on a page. So I open the contact page on my website, and an event would be someone clicking on this button here, the submit, clicking on this content phone number, or clicking on this email address. Those would be things I'd want to trigger as events because they're interactive points. None of that tracking would happen out of the box if all I did was put the Google Analytics code on my website. All I would get would be like how long someone stayed on this page and whether or not they bounced, etc. So that's where Monsters Insights would track that for you and extend Google Analytics functionality to fire an event when those things happen, like kind of automatically for you. Or you could trigger and set that up using Google Tag Manager. And so in here you can see, this is the right tag account for that account. I have tags firing to make those events happen. And I want to track a ton of events on my website. I want to know when an external link gets clicked on. I want to know when any button, a video player, I want to know email addresses and everything. But not all of those pieces of interaction rise to the level of being a goal or a KPI. So I actually don't consider it a goal of my website necessarily to send traffic to other people's websites to go to an offsite link, because I link to them because they have good resources or they're partners, but I'm not a big affiliate. So it's not doing anything huge for my business. And so I want to track that information. I'm curious to know how much traffic I'm sending to maybe some of these partners. But I actually don't want to measure it as like my end goal. My end goal is people signing up for a demo or something like that. And so when an event crosses into the business sphere of being, hey, I want this to happen as a key performance indicator, I turn it in and I make it a goal in analytics. So that's the difference. In Google Analytics 4, there's more event tracking taking place out of the box. And you can actually turn goals on a little bit more easily in analytics, in Google Analytics 4. So if I quickly go into this configure, I know this is quick, you can see I can mark as a conversion events that are taking place and say, okay, every time somebody does this, I want that to be a conversion, and I can switch the toggle on.
Very cool. So then events are something you're doing in Tag Manager, and goals are something you're doing in analytics.
Yes, there are ways of setting up events in analytics in GA4. I found it to be a little bit buggy, and when I get my level of learning of how to actually set them up in analytics to a place where I feel like I can share it, I'll definitely get a webinar out there. But right now, I'm kind of going with my tried and true methodology, which is I'm doing a lot of event tracking still for GA4 and everything in Tag Manager.
Awesome. And would you suggest we're doing the dual tracking and all that with global analytics and GA4? If you're just getting into setting up goals and that sort of thing in your Google Analytics, would you suggest going ahead and doing that in GA4, not in the global analytics?
So I've been going in and making sure I get both accounts to a pretty good state, because unless you're like going to start doing your data analysis in GA4 right out of the box for that customer, you're going to want your goals to also exist in Universal Analytics. And so, I'm still playing in the space of doing all of my ongoing like monthly work for clients in Universal Analytics. So I'm making sure my goals are in both because I'm relying on both properties equally. We've worked with a couple of agencies that really play heavily in the paid space in Google Ads. They're making the migration to GA4 faster than I would say I've seen other people, because they want to take advantage of some of that advanced segmentation. So that'd be one reason to like move faster into GA4 is advanced segmentation stuff.
Cool. That makes sense. Thanks. That's a great answer. And good question. It is 1:30. I want to make sure we are respecting your time. Do you have a couple extra minutes to go?
I do. I'm good.
Question? Okay, cool. Let's see. So one thing that was noted over on Facebook from our viewers over there is someone who mentions that she always has a hard time explaining to nonprofit clients how analytics is helpful, and of course finding balance between audience privacy while still learning about your audience. And it can seem like a chore because they're not selling a product, they're more so selling services and a good feelings, that sort of thing. How would you recommend, do you have any thoughts on kind of selling the benefits of Google Analytics to a website that's not selling products?
Yeah, so to me, every website should have analytics, because we should all have curiosity, if nothing else, around how many sessions is my site getting, and everything else related to my site. So a nonprofit might not have a buy now button, but they want to attract donors. And so they should be curious about, like, are people coming from Google or social or an email? And when they do, how long do they engage with my content? What's most interesting to them? Maybe where are they getting hung up in the process of getting a donation and things like that. And so in my mind's eye, everybody needs Google Analytics installed on their website. If you are a nonprofit, there's one other big sell point for Google Analytics, and that is Google for Nonprofits in the Google Ads network gives up to $10,000 of free advertising to nonprofits on Google Ads. And you have to have Google Analytics first to be able to tie into Google Ads, because what Google Ads wants to do is drive engagement and drive high quality traffic to those websites. And so we need to know about quality, we need to know about volume and all those things. So to me, it's like, first you need a great website, then you need Google Analytics, then you need ongoing maintenance, and then you need ways of driving traffic. The Google Analytics piece, I think, needs to fit in either into the new website or could be a little quick segue project. And not everybody can invest $750 into Google Analytics. Some clients are like, it might only be worth $300 to. Other clients, it's worth tens of thousands of dollars because they need a super advanced setup and they need to go work with a GA certified partner to get there. We serve the clients on the lower end of that spectrum. We outsource and just recommend people when they need the really complicated GA setups. And so you can also have a good, better, best type package for these nonprofits where one is I just get Google Analytics on your website and I do an hour training with you. That's it. Another could be I do the analytics, I do some custom configuration and goals, and I do a training with you, and that's awesome. And then my third package might be I set all those other things up and I set up some kind of monthly custom report to automatically email to you each month that you get. So you can kind of come up with different price ranges to make sure you can reach whatever your audience's needs are.
Awesome. I love that. And yeah, Nancy is saying in the chat as well, donors, nonprofits need to attract donors. So that's a big one. And I think, finding the right events or goals that speak to those clients so that you can show them this is what we can see using these tools, and making it, just clears a picture for them. That's awesome. Let's see, another question here. So this is also from Facebook. If you are using SiteKit, will it also display all of the GeForce stuff on the status?
Like in the status on with the Chrome extension that I was showing?
I think, so I asked, and I think she's referring to, she says on the WP dashboard, you have a section that will display your status/static report from the SiteKit.
Yeah, it should. I will say that with SiteKit, I definitely find it's a little bit like Google Analytics in its interface, like click here, okay, go here, connect this service. I don't leave with as much confidence when I integrate with SiteKit into my website. And so that's where I really rely a lot on like checking my real-time analytics to make sure I'm getting the data that I'm looking for and that I am up and tracking. So anytime I install GA4 or anything with GA on a site, I use real-time analytics for both properties to make sure that I'm feeling good about my GA install. And I don't just rely on like any one tool to tell me it's running. The Chrome extension is a great quick spy, but if I have access to the client's data, real-time analytics is even better.
Awesome. I think that's a great answer. I do want to point out, I'll give everyone a couple minutes if they have another question to get those in. We did do a very casual discussion on Google Analytics for last week during our happiness hour in the Facebook group. So I'll link to that so folks can check that out, because we do talk a little bit about, why it's important to just go ahead and get it installed now, even if you're not planning on using it right away or digging into those analytics right away, but why it's important to start collecting that data now. Lindsay had some really great things to say on that during that call last week. So I posted the link to that video in the chat. Again, in the follow-up email that we put together, we'll include some links that Lindsay discussed as well on those other webinars she has. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Lindsay. I know we're going to have people looking for more info on Tag Manager after this. And I don't see any other, let me check over on Facebook, any other questions coming in. So I think we're good to go. Lindsay, thank you so much. Again, if you haven't checked out Pathfinder SEO, it is an incredible service and tool for agency owners. I really recommend checking that out, having a conversation with Lindsay about how they're able to help your agency to offer more services, increase revenue, grow your agency, all of that good stuff. Lindsay is so smart. I love every time we get a chance to work with her, to hear her insights and learn from her experience. So thank you so much, Lindsay, for your time today. And I look forward to the next time we get to hear from you.
Thanks, Emily, and for everyone for joining us. Great questions, and we'll chat again soon.
All right. Talk to you soon, Lindsay. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We'll see you next time. Bye.